Oh yeah, what's going on, everybody? What's going on? We got a amazing guest here on the Big Idea to Bestseller podcast. We got the author of Butterfly Szn, Aisha Marshall, Forbes 30 under 30, and just overall, truthfully, just an amazing human being. And you're going to see why in just a second. But Aisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. The energy is energy, which is to be expected to be on show or in your presence. So thank you for that. I also want to thank you um, for acknowledging who I am as a person. We'll get into all this in the book, but like when we talk about the book, but um, my like villain origin story is complimenting me on my achievements, and it just which we'll get into. But thank you for complimenting who I am as a human being, irrespective of the things that I've done. So love you for that.
Of course, I'm glad I said what I said. Then it worked out. But here's really something that's important too. And, I want to start here because I think it's important for people who are thinking about writing a book is a lot of times, and we'll kind of start here and then we'll do kind of a little of your intro and stuff. But a lot of people, when we think of the word bestseller, right, we think of it from the standpoint of an achievement. Big idea to bestseller. I want to achieve bestseller status. I want to be bestseller, right? But what we've really come to realize from all the people we've worked with and everything, bestseller, while yes, there is a status and an achievement attached to it, it's really about the identity of who you become in the process of creating a book that is worthy of that achievement, regardless of if you hit it or not. And so I want to start here, talking about identity, talk about evolution, okay? Aisha, talk to me about your evolution and kind of a little bit about your backstory of how you've gone through a lot of healing and how it ultimately has led to Butterfly Szn.
Yeah, I mean, so really at the start of it, and that's not the true start, but like where I had awareness about myself was ran this full service agency. We had a big payroll that I used to be proud to say that that was like a big thing. I mean, we had interns on rotation every semester. Like we was running this creative agency. We were doing great work. I got Forbes 30 under 30 in that lifetime. We were on the cover of like our magazines on like the things that we were doing. We were doing placements. Like, I mean, it was just like best case scenario for like an entrepreneurial journey. But despite the accolades, despite the recognition, despite the impact that we were even having, like I still felt unfulfilled. Not from a fulfillment place, like I need to do more. I did feel that, but I just felt like, I thought that when I got Forbes, like I would feel better about myself, or I thought that, when I got this thing, I would feel better. And it was just like this invisible ghost that would continue to like eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, but I had no awareness of the ghost. And so really what that was that me attaching my worth to the things that I was doing, and which is like how much I was working. I would work till no end, because if my worth is attached to how much I work, no, because I'm going to be working an infinite amount because I want to be worthy of whatever it is, right? And so when I had that realization, the deep work that I did through therapy, through microdosing, through like journaling and self-discovery, I realized that that's what was happening. That was what was at play that I didn't know. It was that I was outsourcing my worth to things. And what's interesting with the book that I wrote in Butterfly Szn, it's not an outsourcing of my worth. It's this is how I found myself. These are the tools where you can find yourself too, so that when you do things, it's in alignment. And when people would say it's not in alignment with me, I'm like, okay, well, what does that even mean? But it's that I can still go for goals. I could still get great accolades. I could still get awarded things for my output, but that isn't indicative of who I am as a human being. Both are two roads that lead you to the same place. One is just with my true knowing of who I am, and the other is like giving that away to have someone else to tell me who I am.
Yeah, I love it. And talk to me about Butterfly Szn here. So your book's out, okay? And it's a guided journal, okay? There's exercises in it. There's so many cool things that are in this. What made you decide to create the journal, to create the book? Was there a moment where you were like, okay, I need to be able to give people the resources that I use and in an easy way? Was it you always wanted to have a physical product related to this? Like what was kind of the ideology behind writing Butterfly Szn?
So the ideology is really a way for me to get out of this self-destructing pattern, which was somebody who it really what I just explained is codependency, right? Codependent on output, codependent on what others think of me, codependent on you name it, it's just you attach it to all the things. Um Now, with codependency, what I can attach myself to is other people's healing journey. I'm like, I really hope they do it. I'm like so fixated on it. And when they fall short, I'm like, well, why am I feeling down now? That's like a enmeshment, a codependent pattern. Now, in true alignment, for anyone who's like listening and understands Enneagram or human design, I'm an Enneagram 3 performer, achiever, doer, right? And those traits I've learned from trauma's the wrong word, right? Like maybe baby T, those are like learned behaviors to receive love, which brings me down the codependent spiral. Now, a projector in human design is somebody who's just like kind of shows up, teaches, but I'm not like in the weeds doing that. Feels more aligned with like a healthier version of myself. So I'm like, okay, if I really want to create change and impact people's lives, I know that I can on autopilot and regulated and mesh myself with other people's journeys. How can I do this in a way that honors like what's true to me? And that's giving people the tools to do it themselves. Because once I like get enmeshed in it or attach myself to it, I rob whomever of their own journey just generally, because part of the process is who you become in the process, right? To your point of becoming a bestseller, like the process of putting yourself out there to even get on the list is the refinement that you get, even if you get it or not. So
Hmm.
that was my philosophy around how can I create a tool that creates impact that doesn't get me like enmeshed with people, and really impact is like the guiding post.
Yeah. And you talk a lot about there's a lot of different exercises. Okay. You know
Yeah.
me, I'm a practical, like, give me the good juice right now. Okay. So, like, walk me through and walk everyone who's listening, like, what's one of the exercises that you have found to be the most effective for you that you also decided to include in butterfly season?
So Butterfly Season has 13 total exercises and they all compound on one another,
Great.
meaning we can't start at exercise 5 without having done 1 through 4. Now, just in a nutshell, the whole framework I think is beautiful, but what I didn't realize prior to developing this framework is that your feelings well, if you can understand your feelings, like looking at an emotion wheel, like if you just Google an emotion wheel and find your feelings on there, it can tell you so much about like what you need to change your life. So if you navigate feelings and then there's like parent feelings and then like bigger parent feelings, if you navigate those to the parent feeling, then you can say, okay, what unmet need is happening for me? And when you can figure out what unmet need is happening, then you could say, okay, how can Aisha or Jake or whoever, the reader, be the person that meets that need to
Mm.
kind of proactively stop you from pouring coping mechanisms that don't serve you. That has been the biggest realization for me because I can now do that even with my dreams, right? Like a lot of us are like, how do you dissect dreams or how do you whatever? And I'm like, okay, well, let's map the feeling through. And like it just shows you so much about your life that you wouldn't have known otherwise.
Okay. Okay. I like it. Now, I want to know this though, okay? Butterfly season, you've turned it into this freaking epic movement, okay? And you're just like I think it's just in its infancy of what's possible, okay?
Totally.
When you look at butterfly, and every time that I think of this, like I always go back to when we talk about the evolution, okay? And I remember we were on a walk, we were at a mastermind together, and we were on a walk, and we were kind of talking about some of this woo woo stuff, but we were also talking about like caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly
Yes.
season, right?
Yes.
And my mind, being like the person I am, I went back to like the Pokemon days of like Pokemon
Yes.
characters evolving, right? And
Yeah.
so there's these three phases, right? There's caterpillar season, there's cocoon season, there's butterfly season, right? And in it, you always use the phrase like freeing yourself from yourself, right? So how do you know what stage you're actually in? Are there triggers? Are there cues? Are there signs that allow you to know which one you're in? And then how do we like move to the next one? And like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, okay. So it's exactly like Pokemon, right? In that there's an evolution that happens and you start to get more skilled at the things. Now, if you're listening, you're like, I want to know what toe I am, even after I explain, or sorry, what season I'm in, even after I explain, at butterflyszn.com, there's a quiz on there that you can take and kind of see where you fall. Now, let me set the stage. You can be in different seasons in different areas of your life, but it's usually the one season that you're in is usually the season that you're in most areas. But some people are just like really good at one thing and then not at other things, and that can be possible too. Now, caterpillar season, let me backtrack because I know that a lot of people that are listening are also aspiring authors or authors. And I feel like this framework before we get into the seasons will help. Now, for me, the framework that I did the book around is bringing you from unconscious incompetent to incompetent but conscious to conscious competence, right? 3 phases. That is caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly season, right? It's an evolution. You go from unaware, not knowing, thinking life is happening to you. Why do people keep doing things to you? Why do you keep meeting the same type of person, having the same fallouts, same financial situations over and over and over again? That's caterpillar season. You don't really have a sense of self awareness to know that you're the person causing the problem just yet.
Mm.
So the book meets you where you're at, which in my messaging, you'll see like on social or even like when you're, looking at the landing page of the book, I'm never saying you're the problem. Because if I told you that you were the problem, you wouldn't open the book. So I'm like, let's free you from the cycles that are holding you back. Never am I saying let's free you from your cycles that are holding you back, right? So that people can be like, yeah, you know what, they are holding me back. Then you read it and you're like, oh shit, I'm holding me back, right? So that's caterpillar season. Cocoon season is like, oh, I have the awareness now that I am the common denominator in all of these situations. What is it that I need to learn about myself, like to have awareness around, and then unlearn, because you can't unlearn something if you don't have the awareness, and then relearn the new way of how to do it. So if you listen to my story in the beginning, I talked about how I was like accolade driven, my worth was attached to everything that I was doing. And now in this version of life, I am the best version I will ever be today, and tomorrow I'll be an even better version, and so on and so forth. But like what I do isn't tied to my performance and what I'm doing. So that would be a relearning of how to be a businesswoman with this new sense of self, right? And then butterfly season is the maintenance of that. Butterfly season is the constant application. People have been saying, yeah, I want to get to a butterfly season as if it's a destination. It's not a destination, it's a constant refinement. And over time, you start to see the fruits of your labor. But when you're constantly doing one thing, and you're wondering why there's chaos around you, well, that's the fruit of the chaos that you originally sowed. So when it comes to butterfly season, that constant maintenance, that's when your intentions start to match your reality. The goals that you set at the top of the year start to come to fruition because you're constantly maintaining a butterfly season.
Mm. What a glorious breakdown. I'm over here like, that's good. But like side note for those that are aspiring authors or authors, like this is what makes a great book, right? Because what you've done here is, if we break this down, is you took a concept that you experienced, that you went through yourself, you put a unique spin on this concept, you created an entire framework around it. You then laid out the framework in a clear step-by-step, easy to follow path that people feel is easy for them to do. You laid out what they need to do within each one of those steps to get the results themselves versus you telling them what they need to do.
Yes.
And then now people are having these transformations and they're able to be in that level of refinement. They're able to then want to get more for the next thing, right? And so that's what makes a book something that people can read, complete, and implement, right? And I think that's really important for those of you that are wanting to write a book is, okay, what have you gone through? What's the framework around it? How can you modify that? How can you put your unique spin on this? And then how can you deliver it in a way that gets people the result that they actually want in the first place? And I feel you've done that really well, because all I hear is people saying, this book changed my freaking life. Like that's all I'm hearing over and over and over again from our colleagues, from people that I've never heard of. And it's amazing. So how do you feel? And we're going to break down some more things, but how do you feel? Okay. You have this amazing book, right? You did it, right? You did it. And I know it was like not the easiest thing in the world to bird this thing, right?
Yeah.
But you did it, okay? And I, for one, am incredibly proud of you as your friend. But I also think that this book's really, really impactful. And so now that you have a book, you're getting a lot of incredible feedback. You're selling this like crazy. You're doing a lot of the things, right? How do you feel this resembles your own butterfly season? Do you feel like this is the fruit of the labor of the refinement that you went through all this time? Or like, how do you feel now that the book's actually out? Where do you find yourself in your stage?
I mean, so I'm going to be candidly true because I feel like a lot of people aren't always true. Don't always say the truth because it might make you look bad, right? So let's just clear the air here. From like a lower vibrational standpoint, it is important for me to self-check myself that I am not the they are not transforming because of me. They're transforming because of them, right? That is a concept to get around, especially when people start to praise you for the thing that you created. We talked about like my villain origin story, right? So knowing when it's like packaged differently is important for me. So that is how it's felt now when people are like, oh my God, you're going to change the world. I'm like, no, you are. Like, butterfly season really, like, the true lesson of whether or not you learn something is whether or not you can teach the thing, right?
Mhm.
And so in the book, in the beginning and at the end, I'm like, it's the collective transformation that's important. If you feel like this changed your life, share it with someone so that they can change their life. Now that's like the thing that I'm trying to be mindful of. Now, in relation to what was required of me to birth this thing was really difficult. We talked about codependency, and there was a version of me that you got to witness in real time where I would allow people to take and take and take. And so when it came for me to ask for help, I couldn't do it because I didn't want someone else to feel as if I was going to take and take and take from them. And so it required me to say, okay, well, I can ask for help. And if someone puts a boundary, that's a beautiful mirror that I could be like, that was a great boundary. Let me use that for the future. And that was in asking you for help. Hey Jake, can you help me? I have this idea for a book. And I'm like, you're my friend. I don't want you to feel like I'm taking from you. And you're like, what? No, never. But yeah, I'll help you. Right. So, like, a lot of this credit goes to you being able to be a really great mirror for me on what help looks like, and that I can birth a book by following your steps and your framework to bring this to life. So, it's been a roller coaster of emotions. I'm so proud of myself. And I feel like, to your point, this is really only the beginning.
Mhm. How do you this is an interesting thought that I was just having. Like, how do you kind of knowing everything that you've been talking about, right? Like, how are you personally separating and yet acknowledging the fact that you're proud of the great things that you are doing, but also making sure that you are still focused on the outcome that you desire to have, which is that butterfly season is a framework for someone else to change their life. You just happen to be the one that created it, right? So, how are you making sure you're still celebrating yourself and celebrating the wins? Because it's really awesome, but also not doing it in a way that takes away from the reader's journey that is so personal and intimate to themselves.
Right. So the understanding the book a little bit more will help you understand how I got to this point. The book shows you the repeated patterns that are coming up in your life, and then we kind of just reverse engineer on why do you implore those coping mechanisms to keep you from feeling the thing. But what you notice is that, yeah, you can focus on one event, right? Like I've met the same type of girl over and over again, but it's really me that's attracting that, right? And then I'm like, oh, what the mind does is it just switches to a different thing. It's like a video game. It becomes a Pokemon, truly, like a evolved Pokemon. When you realize like the pattern that you continue to go down, you'll be like, oh my God, I do it in friendships, I do it in marriage, I do it with my family, I do it with acquaintances. You're like, it just becomes more evolved and more evolved and more evolved. And so, what I just explained to you is really the same pattern that I had done when I had the agency, that I've done even with my jewelry brand that I'm selling. And I can just see this is what it can look like as an evolved Pokemon as it relates to this book. Let me be proactive so I'm not repeating that same pattern.
Are we gonna get super silly question? Are we gonna get an entire butterfly season like Pokemon edition, like but your own like entire framework for like the different personalities of everybody and like the phases?
Dude, I feel like that's great. I am coming out with, I haven't said it, but who cares? We're a great company anyways. I'm going to come out with a card deck, but it's for not for Pokemon, But if you want to do the journal like it as a book club, the deck will have prompting questions to help you go
That'd be sweet.
deeper in community with the book.
That'll be sweet. Okay, another silly question, but also true is like, as you're talking about this, I keep thinking of that Taylor Swift lyric, you know, like "Hi, it's me,
Uh-oh.
I'm the problem," or
Oh yes.
whatever she says.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you're not telling people that, right? And that's not the purpose of what your work is, but it's allowing people to recognize, like, oh, if you're bringing in if the same types of people and you're not happy with who you're bringing in, well, put the mirror up. It's likely to be on you to figure out what that change is, right?
Right, right.
Okay, take me back though. Okay, let's go back to caterpillar season. Okay, now if I believe it's unconscious incompetence, right? That's like kind of the
Yeah,
first phase. Okay, now when you're there, oftentimes, we've all heard, if you don't know what you don't know, right?
right.
And you can only do as good as you can with the information that you have on hand, right?
Hmm.
And I think that it's important to not like blame ourselves, but also to take radical responsibility within ourselves.
Right.
And so how do people, whether it's they're trying to make a change, right? Like I want to write a book, but for some reason I can't, right? I want to find the right person, but I can't, right? I want to have a better financial situation, but I can't because of all the patterns, all the beliefs, all the thoughts, right? This is that caterpillar type of season, right? What do we do if we're kind of like in that stage to break free of the unconscious incompetence? Like how do we become aware of something we don't really know we're not aware of, right? Like who shines the light?
Right. So here's the thing. What I would argue is everyone is aware of the feelings, and that's where we start.
Okay.
Everyone is aware of how that thing made you feel, how it makes you feel every time you set a goal and you never hit it, how it makes you feel that that might also be true when you set a goal to write a book, right? What are the feelings that are coming up? And then we can kind of see, okay, based on the feelings that are coming up, where is the unmet need, right? Or when did you feel this way the first time? Usually, you can track one feeling back to when the pattern was created. Let me give you an example. This is not in relation to a book, but I think it'll help you kind of get how this can be morphed into different situations. When it came to I'm married, been married for 7 years, been together for 11, 12 years. We're trying to have a baby. When it came to the discussion of that, I was like, I don't know why I feel so much resistance around this. I feel like a lot of resistance. I don't know, maybe because I'm in my like girl boss hustle era excuse. Maybe because like I want to have a nanny and maybe we need nanny money excuse, right? There's all these different excuses that were coming up. And I'm like, okay, Aisha, let's track the feelings. When did I feel this way the first time? And I would tell my husband, I just don't know, like, do we really want to add a third party to the situation? As if we're talking about like sexual partners. He's like, I mean, this is like not like a third party, like we're just gonna meet them. I mean, yeah, we are meeting them for the first time when we bring them home, but like this is out of love. Like, what are you even saying? And then I realized, oh, when I felt this way before was when I was really young and my mom would have a boyfriend and I felt like when three were around, I was loved less. So since the inception, since the first time I felt that feeling, the pattern I created is if there are more than three people, once it's after two, I'm loved less no matter what. So I bring that energy into relationships, friendships, business partnership. I mean, you name it. The moment I'm like, there's three, I'm loved less. What can I do to prompt myself up to feel like I'm loved equal or more or just
Mm,
enough? So typically you can trace by a feeling when you created that pattern. And when we can realize that, then we know, oh, what was the unmet need at that point in time with my mom? It was connection. It was like intimacy, love, right? And so I feel like I would lose those things if there were three people around. So it's like the awareness, right? The unlearning that that's not true, and then the relearning of how to operate when I'm around three people or two other people, right? So yes, it's like you don't know what you don't know, but what we do know is how we feel. Everyone knows how they feel. So if we just track your feeling, then you can usually see when the first time you felt that way is probably when the pattern was created.
mm. Okay, I'm gonna start wrapping this up here, but I got a potentially controversial question for you.
Okay.
When we talk about all this stuff, right? We're talking about feeling, we're talking about things that are really deep inside of us, right? when you come from a marketing background, you're excellent at messaging. Where's the divide between what you should be focusing on as a marketer and as a messenger, right? If we're writing a book and we want to really hit people where they feel it, right? But we also don't want to manipulate, or we don't want to
Right.
do anything of that breaches our integrity, but we also want to make sure that we're hitting them where it matters, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes we need that, we need to see something, right? So what is kind of your dance as somebody who's an incredible marketer and messenger, as somebody who also is an author of this book, Butterfly Szn, and we're talking about all these things. Where do you think that marketers and people that are looking to use books for business or grow their business or expand upon their thought leadership, like, is there a boundary? Is there a dance between the marketing and where you should really go, like target people for where they're at, versus where's the point of you're just trying to take advantage of people and manipulate them into doing something that they don't actually need? What have you found around
Yeah. So I'm actually so happy that you asked this because no one has ever asked me this question, and I've thought about this a lot. So marketing is like philosophical too. Marketing people teach you to highlight the wound and pour salt on it, and then no one will even price check you. They just want you to fix the thing for them, right? So if you just keep honing in on this is the problem, symptom, 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 I can solve it, my company can solve it, my book, whatever, and then people will buy. Now, that psychological approach is true often, but I do feel like it starts to become an ethical thing because you end up preying on, this is a little bit more out there, but you end up preying on somebody's unmet need or somebody's like lack of something as opposed to empowering them, because that energy exchange, that in exchange from the person feels like, oh, I need you to fix me. Now, I would go so far as to say, no, that person doesn't need you to fix them. They need them to fix themselves and then they get fixed, whatever it is, no matter what it is. So that's A. B, where's the dance? It's curiosity. I think that if you, in law school, they said, people can write a 10-page paper. That's easy. But to put everything from 10 pages down to one paper, that's really difficult because you have to be concise, clear, not verbose, right? And so I feel like the same is there's a parallel also with the type of marketing that I'm talking about, which is like curiosity. I just say things that you might be curious about, and it's up to you to explore it. Now, some people might feel like that's not as potent, that's not as like shooting you between the eyes. But I do feel like I get the person that actually wants the change, that is going to do it, as opposed to, Aisha, I'm going to pay you to fix it for me, because that will never get fixed. And it's why
Yeah.
people pay like tens of thousands of dollars for therapy because they want to pay someone to fix it. When really, you don't really have to do that much and you can kind of fix it yourself. You know what I mean? So there's
Mm.
a there is a dance. Both work. I've just found that over time, what I've learned in marketing is that I want to lead from a curious standpoint that's still very clear and direct and speaks exactly to my person, but I'm not capitalizing on where they feel like they're lacking.
Mm, mm. I knew you'd have an interesting take on that question, because we're in an age now where you seeing these hugely bold comments and marketing materials, and a lot of times there's no context to a marketing headline, right? Because it is so concise. So now you're listening to somebody that you believe has the outcome you want, but underneath it, it's nothing like what you actually want. I'll give an example of this, and then because I think this is so important and something that I've been suckered into before, and I've probably been guilty of doing this as well unintentionally, because I think we all probably have in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
But it's like I've seen people when I was first getting started in this space and really growing the company, I would see people say, how to get to seven figures in, how we do 7 figures a year, how we're doing 7 figures a month, right? Of course, as an entrepreneur, that's a great tagline, right? Like, it's awesome. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh shit, how are you doing it? But then you don't realize that they're spending $950,000 on advertising a month to get to that million.
Yes, yes,
And
yes, yes.
and it took me the longest time to understand that yes, while the headline can be true, there's so much more that goes into what is actually what you desire. And I also believe that every person plays a different game, even if we want a similar outcome. For example, let's say somebody is like, oh, I want $1 million business. Well, do you want $1 million business or do you want $300,000 in profit? Because you could have
Right.
$1 million business and not have that, or you could have a $500,000 a year business with 60% profit margins and you're bringing home the same amount and it's a much different level of
Yes.
where you're at. And so I think it's really important that as we're talking about this, as we're talking about the marketing versus butterfly season, and we talk about your book and the caterpillar, cocoon, and butterfly, I think it's so important for everyone to just recognize like there's always a way that can work for you, but ultimately you have to be willing to see it and do the work, right? For whatever it
Yep.
is. And so I've loved this. And I'd love to know, Aisha, how do we get a copy of Butterfly Season? How do we get a copy and learn from you and continue to follow along the journey?
Well, because you're so amazing, Jake, I put a discount code. If you just type in Jake at checkout, you'll get 10% off. And the website is Butterfly Season, and season is SZN. So butterflyseason.com. There's a quiz on there too, so you can see what season you're in, and then 10% off your first purchase.
I love it. I love it. Here's my challenge. Okay. I like to finish off every episode with a challenge for the audience. Okay. If this has piqued your curiosity, in the words of Aisha, if this has piqued your curiosity, I would challenge you to visit Butterfly Season as ZN, and I would challenge you to take that quiz and ask yourself if you're ready for the journey. Okay.
Mm,
That's my challenge to you. Not do everything all at once, but take the quiz and acknowledge, are you ready for this? Because if the answer to that is yes, Butterfly Season, the book, will change your life. Okay. We've seen it happen. I've seen it. I've watched you build this whole thing out. I truly believe in you and what you've created. And so that is my challenge to everyone that is listening. And Aisha, I'm so grateful for you being here. This has been a blast.
Thank you. I had so much fun, and I'm excited to be at the live event. It's going to be also a great time.
Oh, hell yeah, it will be. All right, you guys, that is a wrap. Take me up on that challenge. Let Aisha know what you think. Let me know what you think of this conversation, and make sure to grab a copy of Butterfly Season. I'll talk to you guys later.